Hi everyone, I'm Kartine Ong and this is Team Meets. Today I'm meeting with Nic Fairbank, who is the CEO of Programmed Workforce, Australia's largest staffing and training services company. Nic is also a seasoned C-level executive who specializes in navigating challenges in business environments. He has a degree from INSEAD and over 20 years of industry experience. Hi Nic, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So today we're going to talk about some employment outlooks and perspectives for new graduates, because I know a lot of young people in high school, especially those nearing their senior years, get a little bit anxious about kind of going out into the workforce once they're out of high school. So it'd be great to have your opinion on the current Australian workforce.
Wow, well, it's changing rapidly, and not just as a result of COVID, of course. The changes were happening pre-COVID, but I think the way people are learning, the way they're being educated, and the type of work people are looking for is changing probably at a faster rate than it has in recent history. I personally think that's a good thing, by the way. I think that people are opening their minds to different types of work, and we're seeing more females move into what were historically male-dominated fields, including trade work, electricians and plumbers, carpenters and so forth. And also, I think overall people are very keen to continue learning, but want to learn whilst they're on the job.
Yeah.
And that makes perfect sense to me. And so universities and government and TAFE and industry all need to work together to try and create opportunities for people that deliver some learning whilst people are also earning. It's called a learn and earn model. The other, so that's, I think, overall the environment. It is, because industry is changing so rapidly, though. I think if I look back to when I was 17 or 18, and then in my 20s, looking for going from part-time work into full-time work, I think it's difficult now. It's not because the opportunities don't exist. It's because the type of opportunities are changing so rapidly. And so I think it can be or it could be frustrating for young people coming through, just trying to find a role with some further stability. And so that nobody has an answer to that just yet. But I do recognise that it's probably a frustration for people.
Yeah, so speaking of that sort of frustration and trying to find stability, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that teenagers face as they're starting to enter the workforce after high school in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm probably going to sound very old and boring when I respond to this, but the first one is, there's a saying that's always stuck with me, which is where you start is never where you finish. And I think everybody, when you first enter the workforce, it's really just about taking that first step and recognising that very first job that you have, that first experience, is not where you're going to finish, and nor should it be. It's really just about giving yourself or allowing yourself to take that step, learn as much as you can, and then seize on the opportunities that are presented to you as a result of taking that first step. One of the possible challenges or potential challenges that exist today is because there's so much information that's pushed to people through social media. I do think that at times expectations can be disproportionately high. And so when you're first starting your working life, if you just embrace the challenges there and just be willing to take that first step, overall, I think that people will find that more opportunities will present themselves.
So speaking of that first step that you mentioned, obviously the first step in any sort of career is, getting the job. But to get there to the job, obviously there needs to be an interview process. And we were just wondering, what sort of traits or characteristics can help people stand out in their job interviews?
Really important question. Regardless of all the technology that we have, an interview is still relatively subjective. It's still really about connecting to, or the interviewers connecting to the interviewee, and the interviewee connecting to the interviewers, of course. Because ultimately, what people are looking for is whether or not they feel they can work with that person. And so that's really important. So I would say that the way that you present yourself is as important today as it was 50 years ago. It's also important in my experience when you're interviewing, particularly young people coming through, is just be yourself. Recognise that you as a person have an enormous amount to offer in the organisation. And so if you're yourself and you allow your personality to shine, I think that always stands in good stead. No reasonable person is expecting you to have a really detailed resume, because you haven't done much work yet, of course.
Yeah.
So those first interviews, I think those two parts are really important. Firstly, finding a way for you to connect with your interviewers, and then secondly, just be your awesome self.
Yes, that's very important advice for anything, really. So how can teenagers ensure that they have a chance, I guess, at getting into the workforce? There's actually some sort of statistic where it says that vast majority of the jobs that my generation will end up going into don't even exist yet. So how do you think we could sort of guarantee ourselves a place in the workforce, even though things seem pretty uncertain right now?
Interesting that the media comment on that quite a lot, and it is true that a lot of the jobs that you will find yourself in a few years' time certainly don't exist yet. But there are lots of jobs that do exist today. Yes. And by the way, those articles that are out at the moment were being printed 20 years ago as well. And so it's not, the workforce has to evolve all the time. And so what we're really seeing at the moment is this, it is a faster evolution of the types of roles that exist, because technology has a large impact on the workforce, but also the way things are manufactured, the way product is distributed, the way people learn is all changing at the same time. The most important thing when we're bringing young people into our organisation is what we're looking for is that, firstly, is you're demonstrating initiative. So what I like to say, including my children, is just go for it and recognise, again, that where you start is never where you finish. So if you think that you're going to be, if you think that you want to be an executive at some point in time in your career, well, that's not where you're going to start. And so you need to recognise that and just be willing to grab onto an opportunity as it presents itself. And I think if you follow those basic rules, it's pretty difficult for things to go too far wrong. If you spend all your time looking for the perfect role, you'll be looking for a very, very long time, and you'll be missing all the other opportunities that are already in front of you.
I agree. And another common question that often myself and I guess a lot of other people think is, how, like, we know the importance of education, but how important is it sort of in the workforce? Because I know a lot of people are, interested in kind of jobs that don't really require a lot of studying to get there.
I think that's one of the parts that's changing the most rapidly now. A couple of things that are important about that is that as you progress in your career, the relevance of your degree becomes less.
Oh, really?
And so a degree or a trade qualification, if you go and become an electrician as an example, is important to help you to learn what an environment may be like and give you some technical skills to operate in that environment. But after that, once you start work, it's really about your experience and how you've been able to manage those experiences, good and bad. And when people use the term like seasoned executive, you're not talking about a degree. You're talking about the experience that those people or that individual has had during their career and how they've managed it. Presuming that if you've managed those experiences well, then your career continues to grow. And if not so well, then perhaps there've been a few there may be some issues in growing your career. That still comes down to one thing, and that is how well you manage and work with people.
Very
Because it doesn't matter how good you think your plan is or how great you think your degree is, unless people want to work with you and people understand what you're saying, then it's very difficult for you to progress in your career.
Yeah.
So communication skills absolutely remain a fundamental core to anybody to have a successful career.
And since sort of that communication and working with people is so incredibly important, do you have any tips on how people generally sort of my age can help with their networking skills and working and meeting with people collaboratively?
Firstly, I've said this to a lot of teenagers. You have an enormous amount to offer, and so you haven't spent much time in the workforce yet, but the experiences in your life can still add value to an employer. And so that's important. So don't ever feel that you don't have anything to offer. The second part I would say to you is that when you're networking or you're looking for ways to network, it's really just about meeting people and being able to introduce yourself and talk in a reasonable manner about who you are and what your interests are, and then asking relevant questions. And the one basic rule I would say to all people is always listen more than you talk. If you find yourself doing all the talking, I guarantee you the other person isn't listening.
That's very important as well. So what is one sort of key piece of advice that you would give to all teenagers?
If I look back over 20 plus years, I would say the most important thing is to believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself. And that just because you don't have the same experience as the person that you're talking to doesn't mean that you can't offer value to that person or to that environment. So it's not about being arrogant, but it's important that you are confident within yourself. And I think if you go into all business meetings or just go into life with that basic philosophy, I think you'll be okay.
Everyone brings their own individual strengths, no matter what job or position or anything you're going for. It's very important to keep that in mind. But in particular, I also wanted to talk about leadership skills, because I know a lot of businesses, workforces, even things like universities and a lot of life skills in general require leadership and leadership skills. So what is the importance of having leadership skills and, being a good sort of team leader, if you will?
The first thing I would say, remember that leadership is a behaviour, it's not a role. And so leadership is really about how you yourself manages a situation, works with people and helps other people to navigate challenges, positive and negative, in their lives, be it at home or in their personal life or at work. And I think too often people put too much emphasis on the role of a leader per se. Again, leadership it's the behaviour that goes with the person. For me, the most important aspects of leadership, though, is really taking the time to understand your team and recognise that they do, all of them, offer an enormous amount of value in their own way, and that I can learn as much from them as they from me. I don't personally believe in formal hierarchy. I think it gets in the way of good progress. There does need to be some hierarchy for the way you control an organisation or govern an organisation for good compliance. But otherwise, the strongest, I would say, core skill of leadership is your ability to engage with people and for people to want to work with you. Doesn't mean they're always going to like everything that you say, of course. If they're coming to work and they feel they get some value from the working relationship, well, that's good leadership.
Yeah, it's important to learn those sorts of skills, I think.
Mm.
So what strategies or sort of like methods would you use if you are trying to kind of demonstrate leadership skills, but people are either struggling to cooperate or people don't pull their weight and things like that? It's a common question that I've been getting.
It's a good question to ask. You have to understand in my role, and you firstly need to understand there'll be a reason why people aren't engaging. And sometimes that reason doesn't relate to work. Sometimes it can be that maybe they're having a tough time at home, or there could be a whole range of issues. So in my experience, I've always found there's more than one reason why people aren't engaging or they're disengaging. That said, I don't think in any team you can allow bad attitude to exist. And so even if there are, if the individual believes there's good reason for them to behave in a certain way, which might not be that positive, you need to work with them to remove that negativity from the workforce. The biggest killer of organisations is negativity.
Yeah. Did a lot of.
But the first position is to understand that there could be lots of reasons for it.
Yeah. It's important to take out that sort of judgment factor of it and more focus on working towards a solution, I find.
Yes, absolutely right. And I think that's the way you explained that. That's a great attitude to have in itself, because one thing I can absolutely guarantee in everybody's career, there will be times when you are frustrated. There will be times when you don't enjoy going to work, and there'll be times when people really frustrate you also. But that's a given. And then what happens, it's up to you how you respond to those challenges. And if you respond in a positive way, then you'll continue to move forward. And if you respond in a negative way, then life can become a bit more complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And as a very busy person yourself, age-old question that I've been asking for a lot of people is, how do you manage your time?
Not always that well. It can be challenging because these are busy roles, and I have a family also, and so you're a father and a partner, and you've got a friend to people, so you have to find time for everything. In my personal example, I don't delineate between work and personal life, and so I work really all the time, but that also allows me some freedom with my family, because the understanding that I have with my family is that even when we're on holidays, if I need to go and do work, then I'll go and do work. But at least I'm actually with my family, we're still away. And so I've chosen to, you don't have to do it this way, but I've chosen to meld my professional life and my personal life together.
Okay, that's an interesting approach for sure. I know a lot of people kind of struggle with time management, and they're a bit kind of scared about how they're going to do once they enter the workforce and that sort of thing. So thank you for your
the beauty. Sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, thanks for your transparency on that. It's good to know that you can have that balance, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sort of constricted. It can be flexible based on you and your own personal conditions.
Well, I think it is up to the individual. What I was just going to say is that I know there have been lots of books written about this over many years, but look, in this day and age, with the technology that we do have, the way that people communicate, your generation in particular, through social media, that one of the benefits is I think that it can allow you more flexibility because it's an open communication channel, isn't it? The downside is there can be no off button, which means that if you do feel that you need to separate yourself, that can also become a little difficult. I would like to think also, though, that employers these days are becoming more reasonable with the way they allow their employees to find work between home and the office. And so we have a lot more flexibility with all of our staff today, that does present some challenges also. But overall, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and there are definitely thousands of individuals who would benefit from actually having that flexibility for, family reasons, or, like plethora of other things that it brings benefit to. And so I think it's a good thing.
One of the great, yeah, well, I agree. One of the great things is of course, when people start a family, or if people decide to start a family, then both the husband and the wife, or the boy and girl, or the whatever, however the partnership is arranged, can actually they can both contribute because they've got more flexibility to work from home. And I think that's a good equalizer in terms of the contribution to raising children. Society's not quite there yet, but I think we're closer today than what we've ever been before in terms of a balance between both individuals in a relationship taking care of the kids.
Definitely. And so how do you keep up with this sort of changing environment in the workforce? So we've discussed a lot of change in sort of more women entering the workforce in certain sectors, increased flexibility, the influence of technology, that sort of thing. So how would you kind of deal with all of that? It's very rapid, obviously.
The first thing is, again, I think I recognise people will deal with it differently, but firstly, you have to embrace it because it's not going away, of course. And not be afraid of a change. That's also not going away. In terms of keeping up with it, we have a lot of information that's captured for us in terms of technology trends, what's happening in the workforce, the employment landscape, industrial relations, human resources, the global workforce. And so we spend quite a lot of time understanding that and analysing that. And then that allows us to make our own decisions on how we structure our business and where we invest for our business, in being able to either create more opportunities as a result of those changes, and or build brand new businesses as a result of those changes. I think one of the challenges again for young people coming through is that because it is changing so rapidly, I think that can create some confusion. One of my children is finishing year 12. He's about to go to university next year. And on the one hand, it's great because there are lots and lots of opportunities. On the other hand, sometimes there are too many opportunities, and as a result, it creates confusion. And so it's an interesting environment, I think. But what I've said to him is exactly what I've just said to you: is don't be afraid just to take a step. And even if it's the wrong one, it doesn't really matter. At least you've actually shown some initiative, and you've taken that first step, and you can always change. But at least take that first step.
Very good. And obviously, being very successful and a seasoned executive person in the workforce, who inspires you, like in general?
I've been asked that a lot. I don't actually have. I don't really have any one person that inspires me, and the people that do usually aren't the ones that are famous. It's somebody that you'll talk to on the street, or you meet at a party, or you meet at the function. You'll have a conversation with them, and they will have done something in their lives at that particular point I might find really encouraging or inspiring. I don't, again, me personally, I don't really need to look to others for inspiration so much, because I think that if you believe in what you're doing and you have confidence in yourself to be able to take those steps I was talking about, then I think that your careers can be pretty good. My view is that if people spend too much time looking for inspiration, then I think they're probably looking in the wrong places. because you yourself has to be the one that's happy with what you're doing and the way you're doing it. You've started this great Team Meets platform, which is fantastic. Congratulations to you. That's taking a first step. It also takes courage, and you recognise in doing so that it might not work. But as you're going through it, you learn a lot, don't you? And you get to meet people, and I've no doubt you'll already be learning a lot about yourself. And what a fantastic way to start your working life.
Thank you very much for that encouragement. It can be kind of scary at first. Suddenly you meet all of these very, very professional people. But it's been extremely valuable. And I guess the whole point of me doing this is that so I can help other people like me learn these important things in life. And
well, you know, one of the early pieces of advice that I was given is always to remember that the letters after a name, so the letters after my name, CEO, they don't make me any more less or more human. So I was your age once, and I wasn't perfect, and nor was anybody. Was the point. And I think it's really good advice, because too often people just see the title, they don't see the person. But see the person first, and then understand whether or not they're actually worthy of the title.
Well, thank you so much for these words of wisdom and very, very helpful advice. I know a lot of my friends will be very grateful to hear all of these things. So thank you for your insight. And if anyone would like to find out more about this topic, you can visit our website, teammeets.com, and get in touch with us on our various platforms. Till next time, thank you so much for coming. See you.
Well done, congratulations.
Thank you.